Go.
Streaming from South Africa to the world. This is the Stonks Go Moon podcast. What just happened? We break it down so you don't have to.
Welcome everyone to the Stonks Go Moon podcast. My guest today, Andrew Pancholi. He is the CEO of the Market Timing Report. Andrew, welcome to the pod.
Thank you, Rocco. It's great to be here.
I'm a big fan of your work, have been for a while. I'm so excited to get you on the pod. For those that maybe are not familiar with the work that you do and the research that you do, what does it entail?
Okay, so what we look at, there's several angles to this, but it all boils down to looking at how markets and history repeat in patterns and mathematical patterns. And the reason for that is human behavior, believe it or not, does repeat in mathematical patterns. So that's a quick overview behind it.
Yeah, short and sweet.
Short and sweet. So, actually, let me explain. What angle should we take? So right now we're in the midst of the Ukraine crisis, and we can look back 60 years. So typically we look back units of 18 to 20 years because it's a generation cycle. And three generation cycles back, we found ourselves in 1962. And we saw the Cuban Missile Crisis. So there was this huge buildup of tension where America placed missiles. Actually, it was exactly in February 1962, placed missiles in Turkey with an easy striking range of the Soviet Union as it was then. And right now we're seeing, the same threat. So Putin and China, certainly China is putting a lot of positioning of resources around the Caribbean and South America. But also, we've got this cycle set up whereby we've got this Cold War escalating, as we've seen. It's very clearly highlighted right now. So we're following that similar pattern. And if we look at the 1962 stock market chart, it's following exactly the same turning points as we're seeing now as well. We saw a high on the 4th and, pull back to the last part of January, and we've just popped back up now. But that does see sort of quite a sell-off as we move further on into the year. So that's sort of one example. Yes. But also in geopolitics, there's an 82 to 84 year cycle of revolution and warfare, as it were. A quick sort of look back, we back in 2017, we were looking at this idea that this cycle was playing out in terms of a modern day revolution with Trump in America, Brexit in Britain. And if you head back 82 to 84 years from there, it took us to 1933, when Hitler became chancellor, taking over from Hindenburg. And basically the people had enough. They perceived Hindenburg as a weak chancellor. Germany had been hit with all these reparations from the Great War. So, we'd had the Weimar Republic, hyperinflation, the wipeout of the economy. So the people were dissatisfied. Go back the same cycle, we get to 1848. A guy called Karl Marx publishes his Communist Manifesto with his buddy Frederick Engels. Workers, rise up, break free of your chains. It was all about the Industrial Revolution. Those who owned the factories became the super rich, and the millions were forced to work for them. Go back the same cycle, we get to 1865 and the Stamp Act, all right? What happens here is the Americans are fed up, the settlers are fed up of the Brits, and this precipitates the American Revolution. So you've got these three curves, and that comes to 250 years, and you can project another 250 years back to 1517, and you get the Protestant Reformation, where you find that Martin Luther nails his 95 Theses. So to the church door in Wittenberg. So just summing this up, Rocco, you got this like 500-year arc of a religious and cultural revolution. Then you've got this 250-year point from the American Revolution, and you've got all these sub-cycles. We are in one of the most exciting times in the history of mankind. So that is how we use cycles. And then we fine-tune these cycles down. And in terms of market forecasting and portfolio management, we can identify much smaller cycles that identify turning points in markets.
This is absolutely fascinating, because where we maybe look at yearly candles or quarterly candles, you look essentially candles of 250 years and on, and to see where we're going. And that's, to me, that's absolutely fascinating. Interesting that these patterns, the players that are involved in these patterns seem to be those that have financial interest, or the most financial interest, to gain out of these events. And then together with them, the news media that sort of makes us aware of, hey, this is going on and this is now inevitable. None of us are in the Ukraine. None of us are in Russia. None of us have first-hand information. But if you ask the guy in the street, he says, oh, yeah, war's going to happen just because. You don't even know, because you've been so indoctrinated about, what's going to happen. Oh, this is inevitable. Talk to me about the role of, like the news media and those that have it's a financial, war is, everyone makes money out of war, right? So what role does that play, especially looking back?
Yeah, so this is a fantastic question. There's 2 points to this, 2 angles to this. Let's look at war first of all, Rocco. War is genuinely a function of expansion and the requirement for resources. It is very rarely, I don't like you and you don't like me, let's punch each other's lights out. Yeah. It's actually about expansionist policy. And there's no right and wrong in this. That empires are either in a rise or in a declining phase. So China is very prolific right now. What's that all about? So is Russia. China is expanding because it is on the rise. Okay. Yes. The West and the American dream has peaked. There's been mass consumption. Everybody's got lazy, this is so that's a generation or an empire in decline. And that's really what wars are all about, expansionism for resources. So that's the first point. Now, if we go back, I guess I am quite a little bit older than you there, mate. But, if I go back to my childhood in Britain, we had 3 TV stations and they were off the air part of the time, right? Yeah. And if you wanted to watch the news as a teenager or in the early 20s, you had to turn up at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock if it was on the other station, or at 6 o'clock, right? And that was it. That was your main sources of global information. Mm-hmm. Now we've moved on into the internet age, mass information constantly available to you. And you don't have to turn up at 6 o'clock. You don't have to listen to the one channel. You can pick and choose who and what you listen to. And then we've all got our internal belief systems and biases. So actually, I like to listen to Rocco Stridham's show, so I'm going to listen to that. Yeah. But somebody else might want to listen to somebody else's show. And it's the same with news outlets. So you're going to go for a thing called confirmation bias, right? Whatever it is you believe in, whoever it is you believe in, you're going to follow those people. Yeah. And furthermore, you're going to get a repulsion from those values that you no longer, that you don't value, as it were, that you don't respect. So there's a lot of confirmation bias going on, which is why we are in the process of these revolutions that I'm telling you all about, Yes. So, your own point is stronger and the other person is wrong. And we don't really know what the truth is. Look at it. We've had a pandemic. Pandemics are a function of 100-year cycles. We told everybody this was coming in 2018. There was one in 1918, 1820, 1720, 1618. That's it. So vaccines, the big global theories, etc. I don't know.
So this is not. So essentially, this is nothing new, because the same players are there. Those that want to gain financial interest, or stand to gain the most financially, and those in the media, so the legacy media. And interestingly, in my opinion, that's why we have these guys with these big platforms now being targeted, the Joe Rogans, Russell Brands, and those guys, because legacy media is going, these guys are not, bought or owned by someone else. They are a real threat, and we need to do something now, because people are actually starting to listen to them.
Yep, that's exactly it. Well, because they're free speakers, they're free thinkers, aren't they? That's it. It's something different. And also now there's distrust in mainstream media. And that distrust comes from the fact that actually most of these mainstream media channels are owned by only a handful of players.
Yes.
And A, they have their agendas, but actually, A, they're there to sell advertising, and B, they have their agendas. The agendas are secondary to the commercial impact of the advertising that they want to attract and spend and sell, Rock.
Yes. Okay. So if people want to know where we're going, I would say go and subscribe to the Market Timing Report, first of all, but give us like maybe a brief overview of where do you see us going from this point onwards, because there's certain things that might happen or like with a high degree of probability.
Okay. So, looking at the 82 to 84 year cycle, we are 82. Well, Second World War broke out in 1939. All right. So 82 years from that took us to last year. 83 takes us to this year. 84 to next year.
Yes.
All right. And you take that one revolution back, that takes you to the Crimean War. Well, Crimea is just south of the Ukraine. It's the same geographical area. There's a peninsula there.
Okay.
So the immediate threat is for Cold War escalate, and then we get this 60-year cycle coming, Cold War escalation. Okay. And hopefully it won't come to physical conflict, but what we can see is a degree of domination by the empires in the rise, which are basically China and Russia.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm really hoping it doesn't come to global conflict. We might see some degree of occupation of places like Taiwan, or not necessarily occupation, but political takeover there. I think that's there. Also, if you halve that cycle we talked about to do with revolution, it appears in financial markets on the basis of commodity inflation. It's out of the cat's out of the bag now, but we forewarned our subscribers a year last April about the forthcoming run in the grain markets. They've more than doubled, and they're well on their way back up again now. So this is all a function of time cycles. We are seeing this period coming in, and there's going to be give the world a degree of uncertainty. But for those of us who are prepared, this is a time to not just survive, but it's a time to thrive. And there are so many opportunities here in everything that's going on. So it's time to pick up on those opportunities. We are going through change. I was just talking to our dear friend Simon Rhee over in Singapore before I jumped onto our call. Yeah. And, we're saying that for the last 13 years, the equities in the West have been in a bull market. Yes. And if you've only been trading 10 years, you've never seen anything more than the 2020 pullback or what's happened in the last few weeks. Yeah. The chances are we're not going to be in a trending market in the equity markets, but we might see some commodity trending scenarios. There's definitely a bit of a global supply chain problem coming in, and there's obviously a price problem coming in. Bitcoin is here to challenge us all, not just Bitcoin, the cryptocurrencies. We've got a whole, remember, original currency was backed by a precious metal. Yes. Then we had fiat currency, and now we have Bitcoin. And cryptocurrencies. This is a huge sea change. This is actually part of a 250 and a 500-year cycle when you look at that separate topic. Yeah. So we're seeing another change we like to see is in the way we transact. And to be quite honest, my gut feeling is we're going to move back to a barter society after we see some serious challenges to, all of money is now electronic. If we get a meltdown of the cyber infrastructure, then, you might have zillions in the bank, but it's in the bank and you can't access it. You got to go and eat what's growing in your garden and so on. That's the worst case scenario. The best case scenario is there's a lot of opportunities about. But what we're saying is the world is in a huge process of change. So we've lived through some golden years that have brought complacency for the West and overindulgence, and the ability just to follow your own ideals and live in your own bubble. And respect that bubble, but people disrespect other people's bubbles. And that's where the problem arises. So there's going to be a degree of conflict as this comes to a head.
Yeah, because people don't realize that Western, it's just constructs, it's man-made constructs, laws, and that governs everyone. And people just think everyone needs to abide by them because that's how it always worked. But if you look at history, and I had a professor that used to say, if history teaches us anything, it's that it teaches us nothing. And I think he meant to say that we don't learn out of history, because if we go back, these things are all there. We've been here before, but people don't listen and they don't heed the advice of what happened in the past.
Well, that's it. For those of you that follow Christianity, Ecclesiastes, there is no new thing under the sun. Everything that was has been, etc.
Yes,
and that's it. So humans don't learn because their behavioral patterns are the same. And one of the things we started this with the 60-year cycle, which is 3 generations. And what happens is that after 3 generations, people have lost the advice of the elders. They no longer listen to the elders. The elders will stop, who have seen a war. Those who lived through the Second World War will never let you go into another war. Not so many people are like.
That's so true. That's so true.
And I remember, my old friend's mother, she was saying we used to have to hide under the kitchen table. We could hear the bombs dropping around us. And I don't want anybody to live through that. Now, there are very few of these people left. So after 3 generations, people get quite arrogant and they say, we can take this on. We can do this. We can push it to the brink. And that is why the 60-year cycle is so important. And let me just tell you this. December 1941, Pearl Harbor, 60 years later, within less than 10 weeks or 3 months, 9/11, New York. 60 years apart, 2001, 1941, the only 2 times that America has been attacked on its own soil.
60-year cycles. Never knew they were so important. Absolutely fascinating conversation. I'm quite dumbstruck. I'm keen to go and read more on the market timing report. If the listeners want to connect with you, otherwise, where can they do that? We'll obviously drop the links in the socials as well.
That'd be great. So, come and see us. There's a lot of information on our website, markettimingreport.com. We do geopolitical strategy and we look at cycles in markets and clear turning points for each month, as well as provide trading courses. We're also on Twitter, Andrew Pancholi, and LinkedIn. There's a lot of information on LinkedIn. You can see exactly what we do there, as well as I believe we're on Facebook. So thank you, Rocco.
Thank you, Andrew. And to our listeners, peace, love, and prosperity. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.